Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, here with my February Supercoach team and structure discussion. Before I jump into today's episode, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular the YouTube, Spotify. Get in contact with us via X, Supercoach Insider 100, or Swizz26 for me directly. Thank you to all that have liked and subscribed, watched our preseason videos. We've got a lot of content out there this year, in particular our club by club series. There's some updates going on for them now as training reports and match sims are happening. Also, our strategy videos with Supercoach with DR and the Skodfather. So thank you to those guys for jumping on. And also our Booms and Bust series, those short little videos where the content creators out there are putting their heads on the chopping box and telling us who they think is going to boom this season and who they think is going to be a bust pick. It's been some real good ones so far. All right, today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what my Supercoach team looks like as present, as we are the 4th of Feb of time of recording, but also more talking about the structure that I'm going for. I'm finding there's a lot of players that are sort of switching on any given day, but the structure is kind of starting to lock itself in. Looking at a lot of teams online and people who are sending me to their teams, and thank you so much. I will be doing a team review series at some point. And I do appreciate the feedback and everything that's been sent and trying to give you guys some feedback. So I thought this is probably the best way also to do it, because probably the biggest deficiencies that I'm seeing is probably more around structure. So that includes two things, sort of how many position players you have of premium in each position, how many buy players that you're having, and some people aren't really considering that at all, where a lot of people are putting more time and effort into that particular part of the game. And also your bench. I'm seeing a lot of teams being sent to me with a lot of 99k rookies, some who are not going to play, which as much as you can swap and change the rookies as we get more confirmation, having so many 99k rookies doesn't leave you a lot to go. So I'll talk around some strategies to do with that, and that's sort of how my structure goes. Every preseason, I say I try to get down to about 60 players. This year will be 62 because of the flex by the end of the preseason competition. So I sort of make a 50-50 call on each position. There's some players that you can pretty well even lock in more than that as well. And you could say, for example, D1, unless something goes horribly wrong, Sheasel's pretty well locked in there. So it probably ends up coming down to realistically probably 50. At the moment, it's probably floating around maybe 100 to 120. So there's still quite a few players that I'm interested in, and we'll see how they perform over the next month as we lead into round 0 and then officially into round 1. All right, we'll kick off with the back line, and no surprise there. Well, actually, before I even click into that, so one big thing is, so if you go in the different positions, so a couple of people have asked me some questions around this. You've got the 2024, what they scored overall and the average, but you should have access to Supercoach Gold. There's usually a free period now. Even if you don't, well, then shout us out and we can probably get you some percentages. But I'm pretty sure most people have access to the Gold function at the moment, so you can actually sort by the percentages. Projected averages mean nothing at the moment because of the rookies. So yeah, you can kind of get an idea of what everybody's thinking there. I was kind of having a little look between that the video that the Skodfather and I put together in regards to value players. I feel like we might have got 28, 29 that were, it might be 28 that were under 10% come that 1st of Feb. That's what we're kind of aiming for. So I was pretty happy. And then since then, I think Riley Sanders and a couple others have gone past that just because the news has changed around those guys. So it's a good tool if you're kind of stuck on what, in particular, more the rookies, but a good idea to see what everybody's sort of picking. Another good tool is the filters. So you might have you can search with maybe values that you're looking at, but in particular, searching for the team players who are playing on certain buys. So round 12, which is probably the hardest buy to navigate. If you take them out, you kind of get a better idea sort of what other players you can sort of aim at in any given position. So even if we go back to sorting them by averages, so you'll see some popular choices remove. And when you're kind of sorting your team through when it's saved through buys, you can go back and edit and then use this function to sort of choose players or replace them for a different buy if you've got too many, which looking through quite a few teams at the moment, probably too stacked with either round 3 or round 12, which seem to be the two hardest buys to navigate. So we'll start off with a round 12 guy, and that is Harry Sheasel. Nothing's changed there. And probably the Wardlaw news being out, with him being out for a period of time, probably actually helps his CBA. So that's not changing at all. In regards to D1, the only other option at that sort of price was Sam Flanders or Luke Ryan. So and I was going to have Sheasel anyway. So Sheasel's the locked in. Flanders is now out injured. So if you do have him in, which is 23% of you out there, you probably need to make that change. So at least you can go down to anybody else in the defense. And if you're one of the 46% that don't own Sheasel, that might be a pretty easy downgrade for you. Defender spot number 2. I've been playing around with Luke Ryan. I do know his numbers did drop off second half of last year. They didn't really want him stat padding as much, wanting them to play a little bit attacking. With him, he does have that round 13 buy, doesn't miss early buys, and can go down. So still somebody I'm sort of tracking, but not as much as a couple of the others. I've got reasons to pick and reasons not to pick all these sort of premium defenders, and the more I keep going through it with the other content creators, it's kind of an interesting discussion where to kind of go with them. Lachie Whitfield is my choice at the moment. Like, his second half of the year was phenomenal. All the balls going through him. They have lost Cumming, who was playing on the wing. Peatland, they missed to fix it. So they have got a couple guys out. Also got, though I don't think those young rookies kind of affect the team, but they might have been kind of on the fringe. So that means maybe they get replaced by even more rookies for those players that were caught up in that off-season drama. So there are some positions there where you might have guys who are rookie price base coming in, which means if that does happen, maybe even more ball goes for Whitfield. It's really only Lockie Ash that might still ball off him. So as much as he does have that round 2 buy, at least round 2 is much easier to navigate than round 3. So he is in there at the moment. It also allows me to go down to Sinclair if need be. So the other options, it's not that I don't like Zorko, but the round 3 buy does put me off a bit. He is obviously aging. He's like a fine wine. He keeps sort of getting better, but the Kitty Coleman at some point will, get into that defense. And so how does that impact? I've got a few questions around Zorks. Probably too many questions than answers. So I'm sort of leaving him alone. Jeremy McGovern, fantastic season last year, but still continued to miss games. He's probably even more important now with Barras out. So does he have to play a little bit more lockdown because there's obviously no Barras and they're relying big on Edwards? So I've passed on him. Jack Sinclair is the one that I've had a lot of the time, and he is the one that I'm flipping all the time with Whitfield. Sinclair depends on what happens with Philippou's mid-minutes. He was a popular choice. Now Philippou missing a significant amount of time at the start of the season. Do they look at putting somebody else, like just another midfielder in a Winghagen, for example? Or I know a few people looking at Garcia. So they are all potential picks. So Sinclair then stays in the back line, fine. Then I'll look at definitely Sinclair, and probably Sinclair over Whitfield, or I potentially might try to get my D3 up to get to Sinclair then. But we're just, until I get those sort of questions answered in preseason, I'm just leaving him alone. Much easier to go Whitfield down to Sinclair for that position. And just a couple other guys around that mark. Dan Houston, we know is missing round 0. Then he has an early buy anyway. Nick Martin, same boat. Jordan Clark does interest me a bit, so he is definitely on the watch list. I think that's more going to be for the D3 spot. Ridley injured. Newman, unfortunately, missing the entire year. Nasiah Wanganeen Malira, he is one, again, of interest, especially if Sinclair does play midfield time, so I have looked at him. Max Holmes, he's jumped up to 18%. There's a lot of love for Max Holmes, so I have looked at him again. It's the round 3 buy. Sicily, I've been so cold on, but I want to see how Hawthorn's forward line sort of comes together there. So if he is avoiding the needing to go down forward, and maybe it's just late in games, then yes, Sicily is an interesting pick. I know he's got the round 4 bye, but much easier to navigate than the round 3. You can potentially also start Sicily for rounds 1, 2, and 3, and then flip to a Max Holmes or a Zorko, whoever you like, in round 3 there too. So that's kind of why Sicily does have some interest for me, but I need to see and make sure he's playing it back. If he's playing that third tall and back and intercepting, then 100% I'm very interested. But if because of the injuries to Lewis, Deer, I sort of just don't know how Hawthorn's going to front up. There's talk about Hardwick playing back there, but he's not exactly like a big tall. I know Sicily's not like huge. Yeah, if they were to say is it Battle that goes forward, they bring a rookie in. They obviously lost Brandon Ryan back to Brisbane. Part of the deal they did to get Gunston back in, so it's really only Gunston of the Hawthorn options right now. So I need to see what's happening there. The guy I do have doesn't have an early buy. Unfortunately, has the round 12 buy, which he does share with Sheasel, which obviously I don't like. But his preseason form has been just too good at this point where it's hard to ignore. Talking to Gary from the official Wolf, also talking to Matey, who's heavily involved with watching the Bulldogs. It seems like in every match thing, Bailey Dale's taking the kick out, kicking to somebody short, running past, and then getting a handball receive, and then getting a second kick. So that's +8 in for depending on efficiency and everything like that. But yeah, he's just absolutely flying at the moment. So I do think there's some upside the way they're playing. We know that they've lost Caleb Daniel down there. JJ is out injured. So it's really just Fraser and Bailey D. And so a lot of balls going through him at the moment. I can try to find a way to navigate round 12. So that's something will be in the back of the mind with players I kind of bring in. And as much as like you don't kind of want too many from the one buy and the one position, at least with the flex, there is an option there. I could probably move Bailey Gale to say to that position there, or move my flex around just to cover so I can make sure I have enough players for that best 18 when it comes to round 12. But yeah, he is somebody that does really interests me at that price. So he's in there at D3. I also like the structure of D3 because the defender rookies, as you can see, aren't as strong. They probably don't have the same mid prices as we do elsewhere. So I've gone the 3 plus the Callum Mills compared to what I was looking at originally when it looked like we might have had a couple other rookie options. So yes, Callum Mills is my D4. I feel a bit more secured with him. I did say he's probably going to be my bust of the year. And I did say that because I'm still worried that he comes out and scores really well round 0. And then if there's an injury to a Swans player, that's where the bust part will come in. If that doesn't happen and they say fit and there's no injuries to another key player, well then fine, Mills will be fine. He'll just keep flying along, and we need that. Yeah, he could become the best premium defender for the year, especially for that price. He does have the potential to at least make cash and get us to the buy period. The worst case scenario would be, I don't think it'd be like small soft tissue for him, but if one of their defenders go down and they don't really have a huge amount, if it was let's just say it's a Rampy or a Melican or somebody like that, then maybe Mills needs to go back to defense to shore that up. If there's an injury to one of the wingers, Mills has to go then play wing. So there's roles where if you need somebody who can be that guy that can just play multiple roles or needs to fill in a gap for a quarter or a half if it is an in-game injury, Callum Mills is the leader that can do that. He can do lockdown. He can do it all. So that's just kind of my worry. But at the moment, he's playing full midfield. He's playing as that M3. There's a lot to like from him. At that price anyway, yeah, it's hard to ignore as it is. But I just think from that point of view where he could come out bang a couple of big scores early and then maybe role changes because of things. Fingers crossed for us. It's not, at least if it happens, I think most of us are going to have him anyway. So we all go down a sinking ship together. So that's at least it's not as hurtful if his ownership was only say 10%. And then we move on to the rookies. I've been big on Josh Sin. I've left him out for now. I'm still going to kind of watch him through those match sims and pre-seasons games. So I kind of like him. Another question we had around Mills, if you didn't want to go him, was SDK. So Sam DeConning down at Geelong. I don't think you can play both Mills and DeConning because they have the same buy. So you've kind of got to choose one or the other. And DeConning only really comes into vogue if he is listed as the Geelong number 1 ruck. The problem is there, do they chop and change at any given point? So I would prefer, at least Mills is playing midfield for now, then trying to go the other way round. But we get a round zero watch of that, and if Sam De Koning is playing ruck and looks really good there, it's going to be hard to kind of ignore as well. So I think that's kind of the obvious of the other premium guys. And as I said earlier, you can sort these to any sort of price. So let's go 400 because there's sort of defenders I want to. Few other defenders I want to talk to who are highly owned. I'm actually surprised Houston's at 12%. Colby McKercher does look like he's going to be floating around, playing some wing, half forward, midfield, a bit of everywhere. If he was locked into half back again, I would 100% have him in that D3 position. I'd even be tempted to try to get Mills up to him at D4. But why he's still wandering around now, if he comes out in preseason and he's still picking up 30 possessions a game wherever he is, then for sure it's somebody that I'm definitely watching. Jaden Short is one that I'm not keen on. I talked to a lot of Richmond supporters, and most seem not really warming to him for this season, where a lot of the other content creators are actually on him because the feeling is a lot of ball go through him. Correct. The difference with, say, a Bailey Dell, Whitfield, any of these other guys, they have people to kick to. You've got the likes of Jesse Hogan, Nick Larkey, whoever. You can go through all these defenders, and they've all got big centre half forwards who's going to get up the ground and take marks. You've also got competent midfielders who they can chip the ball around to. The issue with Richmond, obviously, Tom Lynch has had a setback, concussion, a little bit of injury. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to move up the ground as much. So we lose that big key target. And also our midfielders, there's always issues with you guys like Prestia, Hopper. So you're kind of relying Short to try to kick and hit Taranto or one of these young kids up. So I just think the short kicks might not be on. And there's also like Vlosten and Broad there who are experienced guys who I think they'll still control a bit of that back line and then give also some opportunities, some of the young kids too. It's sort of like there'll be a lot of trialing different stuff. So he's never actually gone over 100. I can't sort of see it happening. I think there's some value there. He probably could get back up to 95, 98. So there's probably 15 to 16, points on that. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to be one of the top guys. When you're sort of looking at some of the other averages, Whitfield, Ryan, these sort of guys, Bailey Dell's got the ability to go over 105. I just don't see it with Short. Tommy Stewart, I'm just the aging, misses games. He did play 22 last year. Did play some games for the midfield. They've got Lawson Humphreys down there. I'm not that keen. It's also the early buy. I'd rather Max Holmes. Not as much. The only other one there, Matt Roberts. So kind of again to watch, but then you can't really pick him and Mills in the same team. It does make it a little bit hard because of the two guys missing there, unless you've probably got no other guys from round 3, you might be able to get away with it. But if he looks like he's taking kick-ins and doing all the transition out of half-back, then for sure. But outside of that, I'm not. There's not really anybody else that I'm really considering for now in regards to premiums. On the other end of stuff, the rookie. So I've talked about Sin. Kind of just got to watch it. I want to see how's his disposal coming off half back. I think he can find the ball. I think he's probably going to have the role, but it's just from that disposal point of view. So Toby Travalia still in my side. He's a bit more expensive, but St Kilda have had some bodies obviously go down. Their injury list probably looks the worst of most teams at the moment. It's unfortunate for them. So there is opportunities for this young fella to come in and play a role in our back lines. So he doesn't move. The one I'm really big on, and I don't even think he's that highly owned, so I'm going to have to probably filter this to find him, is Ben Patton from Sydney. If anybody didn't see the team discussion I had, so I've done 2 Sydney Swans ones. He has been firmly locked into that back pocket. He's taking the odd kick in. So he's crossed over from St Kilda. He's mature age. We know the Swans love a mature age player. Jake Lloyd will go further up the ground. So I really like him. I've had him in my flex at times just so I can loophole him around in my bench, in my forward line. So he can fit into your side in many different ways, but he's there for now in the back line. So I quite like him. I think better than also Bice, because I know a lot of people were looking at Bice as the option, but it doesn't seem like he might be getting up. And I think it'll be interesting to see if Bice is still heavily owned. probably need to filter this as in regards to a rookie price. So in regards to rookie price, I still go by the 250 mark. I know a lot of people go sort of Sam Layla and under, but I thought I always think rookie 250 and under, and then mid pricer up to 500. That's usually the traditional thing. Yeah, there's Riley Bryce. He is still in 18%, so quite highly owned. I'd rather you just try to find the money and get 20K up to Patton. I think he's way better set and forget. I've got Bo Allen. He's an interesting one because he could be a sub risk. Talking through Jepper in our West Coast pod the other day, it's not locked in that he could play. He's still fighting for a few spots, but what he's done so far does look good. So he's in for now. He's very highly owned, so it is a little bit watch. I do think he'll still play, but yeah, just a potential sub risk there. So that could be a nightmare for some of our teams if that happens. And the last one, and I'm probably gonna have to sort this by price to make it easier. Let's go to the lowest price, and it's the new Suns guy. So at 99K, which is very handy, I'm getting in Ben Gibson. He's only in 1% of teams right now. 24-year-old, absolutely dominated the lower level last season. So there was, I think, one game he might have gone like 170. The big thing with him, the injury to Flanders. So we're kind of not too sure exactly where Flanders was fitting in. We do know Rioli and Noble have come in for half back. Jepson, there is talk about him. He's been training up against Closley. I'm trying to think of a couple of their other wingers that they've got in there, but he's in line for a spot around that wing. So I wouldn't be surprised. He could be a sub-K in it, but at 99K, it's not probably the end of the world. It does have that round 2 buy, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a moment for somebody like a Jepson. So yeah, I like him. Of the other highly owned players who are rookie price, Zach Reed has been playing the preseason. No mishaps yet, but most of the comments coming out of from those match sims is like Zach Reed had 2 spoils today. It's not really something that's off the charts from a Supercoach perspective, but yeah, if he's fit, he plays. So that is something. Saad Haladi, he was, I probably butchered that. Joe will correct me on that, but 61% of teams, I'm saying no at the moment. He was looking like the hot pick when we first opened our sides, but it's he just doesn't seem to be taking that opportunity at the moment. There's some talk about him just probably not fitting in with the group, is behind a couple others. So, things can change in a month. If he's there in round 0, it's a different story. But at the moment, it does look like he's quite far back. He's been playing with the B team all through preseason. Gipkus, no injury back round. Trainer's a chance. I don't think he starts, but so I'd probably leave him alone. James Leake, definitely an opportunity there. So I don't mind that one if you've got the cash to kind of get Jepson up to him. Matt Whitlock, depending on what North do at the back line, but I think he could be a potential chance. And if Whitlock is named, I really like that swing, Whitlock and Patton. You can play around with that one as well. Caleb Smith is my boy. I've called a little bit just because there's a couple other Richmond guys putting their hand up to come off half back. We already know Sam Banks. You've got Seth Campbell. So, and that's also, the likes of Tom Brown and those senior guys we talked about early. So I kind of need to see a little bit more from Caleb, but he's still in the mix. He's still on my list for now. The interesting one is Jed Bustlinger. So Liam Jones going down injured. We talked about that on the Western Bulldogs pod, that Bustling is not getting an opportunity because he's pretty well like for Jones. Jones gets injured. You'd expect Bustlinger to come in now. So if he does, yeah, there is a rookie for us there at 119K. And outside of that, there's just my boy Sin, but he's at 229. So I need to see a bit more from him. And that's really all the options. So I'm kind of looking at from a defensive point of view. So feel free to comment there, guys. Tell me what you're thinking defense-wise. So the big one there, I could probably go Whitfield down to Sinclair, and there's a move I can do later in my team if I want to get Balladell, if up to, say, Sinclair and play both Whitfield, or if I want to get, say, a Jordan Clark, for example, just to straighten out my buys. In the round 13 buys, Sinclair and Clark do share the same buy. So one of the strategies that I'm kind of also considering is maybe trying to spread those mid-season buys. So maybe Balladell again, he might be the one that loses out, and try to have one from at least, if I've got 4 premiums, if we count Mills as a potential premium, one from each buy. So we've gone through that buy episode if you haven't seen it with DR. But yeah, if you've got like North Melbourne sharing with the Dogs, Port and Carlton, and then we've got round 13, Freo and St Kilda. So it's probably one of Ryan Clark or Sinclair. And it just kind of spreads better. Mills sharing with the Suns, Richmond, Collingwood doesn't worry me so much there. So just trying to spread that out just a little bit and does make it easier. Injuries can happen, but then I can potentially then swap for a like for like if that works out for the buys. All right, we will go down to the mids now. Now, again, I will sort this by prices because there's obviously some really high price guys which aren't in the high percentages. First pick is Bont, 51%. I have played around with the idea of not starting Bont, but I think he's 29 years old. He's still in his prime. If you don't start him, how do you get him? He's a VC. He's a captain option. The hurt factor is huge if you don't have him, especially at that ownership. Like if you don't have him, he pumps out one of his 150 scores, season over already. If your guy that you've brought in doesn't perform, so I think it's just easy to get Bont in there. The next one's Zach Butters. I'm pretty bullish on him. I've said either Sarong or Butters probably go M1. I think they could overtake Bont this year. I think Bont slightly regresses. Maybe it's a 120. I think Butters could definitely go, that 125. So, I think he should be in most people's times. He's only in 27%, and that actually genuinely shocks me. If you haven't heard JB and I talk about the Port Adelaide pod about their easy fixture, go watch that, guys, because, that's ridiculously low. Lockie Neal, no thanks, and nothing against Lockie Neal because he's a superstar, but it's just because of that early buy. I'm just going to kind of leave that alone because there's other options. Nick Dacos, 35%, no surprise there. He does have that early buy. If that's the buy that you want to kind of, you're happy to, have him miss that 1 week because you just want Dacos because he's a superstar, no problems of that in the world. So I completely understand that. I can understand why some people are potentially looking at fading some of these other options we'll talk about for a Dacos. No problems in the world. But I still think it probably shouldn't be over Bont or Butters. You probably could go Bont, Butters, and Dacos. That's a pretty strong midfield. If you can get 4 in and have my man Sarong as well, great. But I think they're the 4 that I quite like. It's just the difference with the Dacos compared to the others is he is missing an early game. I'd definitely be trying to look at Dacos as a get-in option at some point very, very early on. I do want him for Anzac Day. Isaac Heaney, the guy, awesome year. Maybe it's just because the early buy and the new coach, just leaving him alone. Unfortunate for Treloar. I was already, if anybody saw me talk earlier about that, I was, I'll pat myself on the back, not to gloat, but I was all over the money with that. It helps when you know people who are family. So yeah, he was talking about his cousin was talking about his calf injury earlier in December, and obviously he's done a much severe one now and was going to miss a significant period of time. Probably gets back somewhere between round 5 and potentially as long as the buy round 12, just depending on how much they want to risk it. So it's not going to really affect the owners because it's only 1%, but maybe a guy that I'm going to mention in a moment. Caleb Sarong, 16% is my M3. I've got him, I think it was MJ got me. Yeah, it was. MJ got me on his show. It'll be coming up at some point, I think, about Sarong. So, I talk at him a bit in absolute depth. I love the guy. Yes, he had a poor second half compared to his first half. There were reasons for that. I do discuss Sarong at length if you want to see that. Zach Merritt, again, early buy is the only thing probably keeping us away from him. Patrick Cripps, a few people have been sending me their team of Cripps. I get it. He had, 4,000 Brownlow votes last year. Hard to back up, but I still think he has a fantastic year with, Walsh potentially missing a significant time, depending on how he's fitting. Cripps is going to, again, be the main man in there, so I can understand that. Brayshaw at 10% kind of feels a little low because I feel like every content creator's got Brayshaw, but the public teams don't. So there is a lot of love for Brayshaw. I have tried to get Sarong and Brayshaw in together just because their start is very good. And if I do go to 4 premiums, he would be the one. And LDU is another one I really like just because of that contract year. But again, compared to some other players, his body lets him down. A few people have messaged me, actually quite a few people, for Noah Anderson. I get it. His home form awesome last year. His away form not so much. If he picks up his away form, could be one. Again, it's that round 2 buy. So if you're going to have Anderson, you can't have Whitfield. I think that's too many the premiums. But if you can potentially have one if you're fading Whitfield. Yeah, Noah Anderson's a fine pick. So they're the sort of premium guys. Sort of just looking at there. Dawson, I probably cooled on a little bit. Was starting a little bit of wing time. I don't think Adelaide exactly know what their best mix is at the moment. Outside of probably one guy who is getting a little bit of wing time that I don't, but I prefer him because he's a mid-pricer, and we'll talk about him in a second. All right, if I go back to ownership, so I'm going just the 3 primos. I don't mind the idea of the 4 primos, but I think there's too many other mid-pricers and rookies, so that's why I'm not touching that. I have even explored the idea of the 2 primo team, and if we get all these high rookies playing early on, then it's going to be hard to kind of ignore, especially if the defender rookies don't all get up. You can definitely disperse your cash into other areas, and I think that could definitely be a strategy because the more expensive premiums are going to probably have better job security and scoring power. So you could definitely look at something like that, but then it becomes the question: who do you go out of sort of Bonch, Butters, Sarongs, Dacoses, that sort of group? Which 2 do you go? And it does probably might leave you a little bit light on with vice captain option on any given week. So I've still got the mid-pricer in there. It is not Levi Ash. Oh, sorry, no, Levi. I mean, it's not Will Ashcroft, who is at 28%. So I've gone the Melbourne on board. Actually, surely we had to skip him. Surely Oliver's in more team. There he is, 49%. I was going to say, there's no way Oliver could be that low. Clary just looks awesome. Talking to the Skodfather last night, he apparently caught up with a mate who's a mate of Oliver. He was saying he was apparently in ripping shape, feeling good in the head. Hopefully he gets through the rest of the preseason fine, and that ownership should climb pretty dramatically. We got Pete Ling in next. So this guy's crossed over from GWS, points per minute off the absolute charts. Just a question of role, but in the match sim, he was playing wing and then moving into the midfield. I was kind of swapping a little bit with Dawson, so that's why I've called a bit more on Dawson. So Pete Ling, at least with him, he's an easy one to go down if there's one of these premium rookies I don't have. So I don't mind the price point. I'm probably finding it easier to structure my team this way, where Pete Ling's the guy that can move. So I'm not probably going up to a Chera. I can do it if I really want to and move a couple pieces around, but I do like the idea of having kind of those 2 mid-prices in there, Clary being one, and then either probably I'm down to sort of Chera or Pete Ling, or make it a rookie and have 4 rookies on field. I think that's probably the best setup for my side at the moment. In regards, there's Will Ashcroft, and it's more the fact that early buy and sort of how does he, how much TOG and CBAs does he get in that midfield when you've still got Neil and Dunkley, McCluggage? I need to really see it. Yes, we know what he did in the grand final, and he could dominate. And it's also sort of the ceiling too. I expect Oliver's ceiling. Yeah, he could go back to 110. That's no problem. Will Ashcroft. I always think the M3s, and I've been doing a bit of a study around players who play the most CBAs, second CBAs, third CBAs at any given club. I think Will Ashcroft probably gets the third amount, which means he's probably capped at best 105, more likely 100, just because he's not going to be around the ball as much as a Neil or a Dunkley, unless there's an injury. Now, if there's an injury, then it just changes everything, because then Will Ashcroft obviously gets more bumped up time, and it's something I'd be a bit more interested in. Where at the moment, we know Clary's their number 1 midfielder, Sarong, Butters, Bont. Sort of picking guys like that. The only one there is Pete Ling, but he is the one that is kind of moving around depending on what sort of other cash I'm playing around. But that's the structure there. And it just can become that 4th rookie. All right, we move on to the rookie price players. So I'll go to 250 and below. There is quite a few interesting players, and this is why the Pete Ling cash could become interesting, just because there is a couple of guys putting their hand up. We've already got Bo Allender's team. I have next Jagger Smith. Again, with Walsh out injured, he was already going to be playing, but that probably gives him a slight uptick there. we already knew they've lost Kennedy, which a few Carlton supporters continue to message me about, saying how disappointed. 64%, guys, get that up to 100%. He's starting. He looks good, so don't need to say much about that. Levi, I left out last time. He is the guy from round 3 that I've kept in. The hard thing is, because I do have another round 3 rookie there, but I can carry 2 because we've got the 2 bench spots. So Levi, yes, again, the midfield time, how much is it he's actually going to get? But going off his numbers and talking to Ben and DR and all these Brisbane supporters, it just seems he's going to slot into any position that they can get him into, and he'll still score reasonably well. So, it was probably enough for me to make the move there. Going down is, I don't have Draper at the moment. He's the one, again, it's, as I said, Peatling versus Draper for that spot from Adelaide. If Draper is lock-loaded, looking really good through those match sims, then it's a different score. I did hear a little bit about, I think, a back complaint. So I just kind of want to monitor and see how he goes, where, Peatling, I'm a little bit more assured of what he can do. And as I said, those points per minute were off the chart last year at the Giants. Harvey Langford, but no Petrarca. And if anyone hasn't seen the footage of him absolutely shrugging off, was it Vining? I think it was one of the Melbourne midfielders. He looks an absolute beast, ready to go. 16%. We can pump up those number, guys. Especially when you got Sammy Lalor at 33%. Like Lalor, he's fit and he's into the midfield, and he's somebody, again, I'm looking at maybe for that Peatling spot if he is there. But I've got more questions about, say, his body than what I would Langford. Josh Smiley is part of the injury rehab group at Richmond too, so you can get him out of your sides. So that's one to change. I know I'm not huge on Finn O'Sullivan. I know from the centre bounce Big J is, but I'll leave him around alone. Elijah Sardis, somebody you got to kind of look at too. I'm just kind of worried when Essendon have all their players back in. How does that fit? But he's absolutely having a huge preseason. Needs to be monitored there as another player for our bench. I've really liked Xavier Lindsay. Just got some questions about the role, so he's come out for now. I've moved the cash around. I've still got Mitchy Nivet in there, so that's kind of a wait and see what sort of role he could have and how much game time. There's a couple of Geelong players I didn't talk in the back line about. Connor Sutherland as well. There's potentially a spot for him. I think one of these Geelong guys plays, maybe both of them do. It's just a bit of a watch there, but I can easily pivot him to another player. In a perfect world, he probably doesn't, because it does help my sort of buy situation there. But as I said, I can carry 2 of those guys in my midfield, no problems at all for that round 3, because we've got that extra spot. I've got then 2 of the most owned guys also sitting in my midfield for now. One is Kako. They've just lost Wilfie. He was already in that side anyway, Kako. So it's going to be him and Gresham as small forwards there. It's not really much competition now. I think it's just Davey. So, he might not score the best, but he's definitely going to have a role. And I've got him in the midfield just because I can't really fit him in the forward line at the moment, because some of the guys I've got in the forward line aren't dual position. But I can obviously muck around with it with the flex and stuff like that. And the same, and this guy I kind of try to get him on field in the forward line. Elijah Hewitt is having absolute awesome preseason. So he is one of the most highly owned players, 61%. So maybe those people who've done auto teams, if you come back on and you see this video, get Elijah in here, because he deserves a spot in all our sides. Down to the ruck line, and the ownerships here. I think there'll be one guy massively highly owned, and that's Tristan Cherry. Surprised it's actually only 54%. We have talked with a couple of people saying there might be a slight regression there, but he's still going to be one of the best rucks to own. So it's hard to ignore, even at that price. So, he hasn't moved once from my side. I haven't even played around with the idea of moving on Cherry. Tom de Conning, I did have in until this morning, until the Channel 7 report about Pitane talking about potentially playing forward, sharing the ruck time with de Conning. He's only 28, still signed for 3 more years. Are Carlton worried that de Conning's going to take the 1.7 million reportedly offered by St Kilda per year and head there, and they're kind of looking at different options? Who knows? You can't say he's not going to leave until they've all sign because we've seen enough of that in the AFL. Actually, anything's possible now after the NBA trade the other day. So, I'm not going to leave anything off the table. So I did have De Koning. It wasn't him. Matty Flynn, I've gone cooled on. He was swapping between the A and B side the other day. There's just too much swapping for me to want to go there. So it's down to me getting the cash up, and this is where the Peatling really comes into it. So it's dropping Peatling down to one of those rookies to get Max Gawn in. He's off that back from that larynx injury. We know what he can do. It's probably his last real year to have a proper crack. He could still be the number one guy, 15%. He could be a real point of difference. So I do like Max Gawn, and very tempted to kind of do that move with Peatling and him. The other one, he's only 6%, is Sean Darcy. It's the injury affected, the injury history, which is the worry. We know how much weight he's lost. We know, he's gone over to Qatar and done all that sort of stuff. He is back training. So somebody I am considering looking at quite highly. If I'm going Darcy, there is a caveat here. I'm not Harry Boyd will then go into my flex, which he is at the moment, because I will be picking Freo's backup ruckman. So Jackson will still be that second pinch hitting guy. But we saw late in the season, Fremantle were willing to play Reedy as their ruck. So Liam Reedy would come on as my non-playing player. I'd have one of them as the obvious handcuff to Darcy. So if I'm picking Shrek, I'm picking Reedy. Darcy pulls out late. Reedy's the one coming in. So I don't have that worry about, oh my God, what happens with Shrek. It does save me some money if I do go Gawn, because then Reedy just becomes Boyd in that position. So it's not the end of the world there. If I do go Gawny, obviously I've just got to find that Peatling cash to get Shrek up. But I will monitor Shrek, and if Shrek does pull up sore, get an injury, whatever, then it might be Peatling straight down just so I can get Darcy up. So that's where I'm looking at. And I've already talked about the flex. So I've looked at Patton. I've looked at Hewitt. I want guys who can I would prefer guys who can loophole move between a couple positions. But right now, it's just Boyd, just because that's where he fits in, just because I want the handcuff. I probably should go this by ownership, because he'll be one of the most owned players in here. I'm actually surprised it's only 46%. The big news, but is Marshall is framing for a round one. So he's much better than what was first reported. So Boyd, this is the thing. If he is named with Marshall, the scoring will be less, but at least the job security is good. So at least we get to see that in the flesh with them together through the preseason, because it looks like Marshall might even play that preseason game, which would be awesome. But even if he doesn't, Boyd, even if it's rotating forward time at 99K, it's a bit like Jepson. It doesn't even matter if he gets subbed off at a point. He's just so cheap. So, and then even if, Reedy, plays a few games, makes some cash, I can always swing Boyd back down to Reedy. All right, the forward line, very popular choices here. The big one, Horne-Francis, still in my side. Have played a little bit again with moving. Actually, I shouldn't say still, because I had him out last time. So he has come in. I do like their draw. I know he's going to be a top 3 forward. It's just sort of what could I have done with that money elsewhere. Was playing around again with, that's where sort of Brayshaw comes in, looking at him. But because there's, again, so many midfield rookies I've kind of been looking at, but there is so many forward rookies now, you can potentially look at maybe it's fading a Horne-Francis if it's going to get you another premium midfielder. If it would meant that cash, say you had a Peatling and you want to go Peatling down to get, say, Dacos in and turn Horne-Francis into a rookie, that is definitely food for thought. So you could play around with him. I don't think he's going to go up too much in value. He's probably priced at where he's roughly at. Maybe there's 5 points there. Maybe he gets up to somewhere in the the high 500s. I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't start him. Jackson McRae, 62%. Say no more. Philip, who's out. He was already playing midfield as it is, so no surprise there. Quite a few people have messaged me about fading Bailey Smith or looking at that idea. I can see the reason why. It depends how he goes in round 0. It's a slow start in round 0. Maybe we look at picking him up after the bye. Maybe we can play a bit funny there with maybe an Essendon and Hawthorn player to start off with, and then looking at bringing in Bailey Smith after that if he does start performing. So I'm not against that one at all. I can understand the thinking, but for now he's in, and then we'll just monitor that yeah, just as a potential look at. Caleb Daniel, 70%. I think he's the most owned at the moment. That's probably a good read. How many auto teams we've probably got going at the moment, because yeah, Caleb Daniel should be locked away there at that price. The guy that will be barely in any teams will be after I had the West Coast discussion. So we've got Marriage now playing. He's in 3%. He's playing backline. They've lost, obviously, experienced players. Barras, there's no more Hearn down there. He's involved with kick-ins. He's involved with transitioning the ball out of the back line. He is a more expensive price. So Sin was the one that made way, put in a rookie down in the back. Well, that's where I moved Patton, and Marriage comes into my forward line at that price. Really hard to ignore. I think he's got a really good role. So one, I'm really interested to watch how he goes preseason, because he's done nothing wrong so far. Hutchinson's an interesting one there. He's going to be playing wing by the looks of things, and I think they're going to rotate off the other wing we were talking about. He's in 0% of teams. I am, again, looking at him, but having two Eagles at that 223 and 233 price, I'm not so keen on. But yeah, he needs to be watched, because if he has a big preseason, it might be, again, too hard to ignore. And then I might, again, that Peatling money might have to go just to fit him in. And then Berry from Port Adelaide, he has not moved once. And all the reports is every time I actually hear somebody says something and it's about Berry, and the kid just seems like he can seriously play. I know Freo are really keen to get up and get him. Can't say any more about that kid. I think he's going to be one of our better forward rookies this year. And we've got the next two, which I probably should, again, sort by team, because percentages aren't going to help us. One's from the Giants and one is from the Bulldogs. So we've got Connor Stone and Sam Davidson. Stone has been apparently training in the back line. We're talking about Whitfield and Ash having a monopoly and then probably a rookie coming in. Connor Stone seems to be that rookie. So at his price, he's 10% of teams at 119K listed as a forward. So yeah, if he's the one they are choosing to be involved in that back line, even if it's that seventh defender coming off the bench, it's just the role. It's a beautiful role that he could easily, score 60, 70 points and make a lot of cash for us there. Sam Davidson's been ripping up the preseason. I think in the latest match sim, he might have kicked another 3 goals. So the Richmond VFL player, but he's in there, not just even mature age, but just on his own right. He's done the body of work, and yeah, I feel like he's the perfect fit with Jackson McRae leaving. Yes, they've got obviously Kennedy who's come in as well, but we've Treloar out for now. Sanders and Kennedy, those guys will rotate a little bit more through the midfield. So there's that extra spot that's opened up because of Davidson, and now Kennedy having to sort of alter roles a little bit more. So there we go. That is the 31 locked in. Now, just in regards to a little bit of strategy and structure talk there. So that's what we've got. It's very annoying. This emergency thing keeps coming up at the moment. So the things I really like and that little bit next thinking that I've been looking at. So if it wasn't Whitfield and I sort of go Sinclair, that would mean I'd have 7 defenders come round 2. I've been looking at potentially having an Essendon and either a Gold Coast or a GWS player for the different lines, because if hypothetically, let's just say I do move Whitfield to Sinclair and I don't go with the other round 2 player, and where are you in there, Jack Sinclair? That gives me a little bit more cash if I want to move around. I'm not a big of keeping a lot of cash. I know some teams have like $100,000. I just spend it. I'd rather have the cash on the ground. So this is the situation. I get to round 2, and if we kind of have a look at that fixture and how that plays out. So we've got the Friday night doesn't affect because there's a Thursday night Carlton Hawthorn. But if I scroll down and we get to say Saturday, that's a good one. We've got Saturday night St Kilda versus Geelong. So I can put say Toby Travalia on the bench there. Chuck the emergency on him. Let's just say he scores only a 40 and I don't want that score on field. Great. I just leave it as is because the Swans are playing on the Sunday, and so are the West Coast Eagles. So it's still best 18, but I don't have Travolio's score. But because Jepson's missing, let's just say Travolio comes off and scores 100. Well, see ya, Bo Allen, you're going to the bench. And Jepson, you're going to come on. You're a non-playing player. I will now get Travolio's 100 part of my best 20, 23 on the field. And then that will now count as my part of my best 18, unless, I had 19 other players go over 100. So I'm looking at loopholing and using my bench for the different buy rounds. Again, like round 4 with Kako, so I can kind of move him around, but let's just say it's in the midfield there, and he could, be a forward as well. But let's just say Nevitt is playing. So again, I'll put the score on Nevitt. Nevitt comes out against against Melbourne, scores a really good score. Okay, cool. It might be Levi Ashcroft. It might be whoever I've got. You're going to the bench. Nevitt, your score's now going to count as part of my team because Kako isn't playing. Or again, if Nevitt's score isn't good, well, okay, Levi, you're just going to stay on ground. So there is ways to exploit and use your bench during these rounds 2, 3, and 4 with your rookies that I'm very interested in each line. If some of these rookies are just must pick, don't just go out and pick a Sard or a Reed or whatever, especially if they don't look like playing. So if Kako, for example, didn't look like playing, I'm not going to pick an Essendon Hawthorn rookie just for the sake of it. But if one of them is playing and I've got the 50-50 call between two rookies, then I'm going one from each buy, just so then I can sort of play with that. And then that's the same with round 3. That's what I was saying about it doesn't really matter with Ashcroft and Nevitt because I've got the two guys there. So Kako is playing round 3, and he actually has the Thursday night game. Awesome. So emergency comes off Nevitt, goes on Kakao. Kakao only gets 10 points. Well, big deal. He stays on my bench. Doesn't matter. If Kakao comes out, kicks 3 goals and has a 100-point game, awesome. Again, Nevitt, on you come. Hewitt, you're off. I'm going to get Kako's score part of my 23. So just a little bit of strategy talk there. It's also important with these guys, if you're not starting a non-player, so if you don't have Reedy or one of the other non-playing players, and you've got Boyd there and Boyd is playing, you're not going to have a loophole option, especially round 1. I'm not so concerned about. Yeah, we love the loopholes, and I don't really want the non-playing player because there will be a player in the first few weeks will get injured or one of these rookies will get dropped anyway, so it'll open up. But rounds 2, 3, and 4, we have buy players. So again, if I want to use, I can potentially use a Kakao or let's see if it's a Connor Stone round 2. So round 2, the Thursday night match is Carlton Hawthorn. Doesn't bode well for me, but the best one is Port Adelaide Richmond on the Saturday afternoon. Butters VC Richmond. He probably goes huge, ends up scoring 160. I think he scored 170 something last year. All right, on you come, Kako. Kako, you're my new captain. We said round 2, so it won't be Kako. Oh, that would be awful for me. Awful. Connor Stone, come on down. So Connor Stone, he's the one. You're going to replace, say, a Marriage right now and make sure West Coast hasn't played, which West Coast hadn't. Connor Stone, you're my captain. Because he's not involved, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. Even with the best 20, with the best 18 situation, Connor Stone's on as the captain. We've got to take the vice captain score. That's Butters. Butters gets doubled. So just some things to think about there with your starting team, that you do have enough. These sort of, if you're not starting a non-playing player, that you've got sort of maybe a rookie from each of the buys. And that's what I'm very interested in doing. And that's where the problem now with sort of Mills and Patton doesn't sort of allow me to do that in the back line, because in round 3, both of them are missing. And the only way I can get away with it, and that's why I kind of like Patton here, because then I might have to chuck him in the forward line. Bailey Smith might go into the midfield if I don't say start Nevitt. So there's some ways I can, again, play around with those buy rounds to try to maximize using my bench and my rookies, because how often over the last few years have we talked about, so Josh Shelley was a great example. 1 week scores 30. We've all got him on field. The next week we put him on the bench and he scores 100 and nobody's got him and can't loophole him. So I'm looking at some of these rookies who can some weeks go 30 and some weeks go 100. Like, okay, cool. If I can loophole 2 rookies together, it takes away that issue for at least those first 3 rounds. And then by then we're getting to round 5 and some of these rookies are already might be getting close to maxing out price anyway. So I'm not as concerned anymore. They're probably a couple of weeks away from being fattening out and moving on. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Wasn't a little bit more detailed, but yeah, that's what we're rolling with at the moment in regards to teams and structure. And now that it's finished, you can also have a look at the buys too. So the big one, as I said, round 12, which becomes the issue, and this is where like Ichiera's and everything. So again, ignore the rookies too when you're doing stuff like this. So say a Berry, he's probably not going to be there when it comes round 12. So ignore him, ignore Jagger, unless Jagger just becomes the rookie that, the day cost of the cheese or that you can keep. So for me, round 12, I've got Horn Francis, Daniel, cool. It's 2 guys. I probably can cover with the rest. I can move one maybe into the flex. Midfield, yeah, again, I've got 2 guys. I can cover that. The ruck, it's 1. And then the back line, 2. So it starts to get a little bit too much, 2, 4, 6, 7 of them, especially but at least it's best 18, 31 minus 7. I'm still got 24, hopefully playing and choosing 18 from there. It's a little bit easier now with the flex position. And this is where also a non-playing player does become a bit of a problem because it is one less guy that you do have. So do be mindful, because I do see some teams having not just these guys, but LDU and Chera. There's a whole lot of guys now. If you're thinking Chera is more of a keeper, it does become a bit of a problem. So you can kind of play around with that. And maybe if you've got too many, and this is where, say, the discussion there with, say, a Bailey Dell or a Horn Francis, and you're like, well, maybe what's another alternative for them? And there, so maybe then you go play, and I use that cash that I've got, which was at the moment 541. I can go and swap him around, and let's just go pick somebody who maybe let's just go Sicily for now, for arguments. So Sicily comes in my team, and watch it save, beautiful. So Sicily's in there now. If I go and look through those buys, yeah, that's one less I don't have to worry about for that round, which is great. Makes the defense better. The other part to it then is we have to go check out Sicily's buy. He is round 15. There's 5 rounds of buys this year. Sicily, well, I don't have anybody else in that defender defense who's missing that buy. So cool, he's a better looking for my structure there too. So do play around with that. If you're 50-50 on a player, play around with those mid-year buys. It's not the be-all and the end-all, but you just don't want to be locked in with so many that if you don't get injuries throughout the season and these premiums don't end up getting traded out, or you get mid-prices who you can't move or makes it hard to move, then yeah, you get yourself a bit stuck. And it's probably not good, like having a whole around there where you've got 31 players playing, or like, you've got just nobody missing. And like the particular rounds for that will be sort of your round 14, round 15, like if you look around 14 there, and it's probably a bit light on. So maybe I need to look at like a Noah Anderson type or somebody like that who's got that buy, because outside of sort of Mills there, I'm not really missing anybody. And then that becomes also a problem again when you're trying to loophole players. So again, the rookies, they'll take care of themselves. You'll end up trading players in throughout the season, but then, yeah, maybe Dacos is a good check there because, yes, he's got the early buy, but if you think he's going to get off to a great start, but maybe you still got a plan to bring Dacos in and then he becomes a buy player, and at least you've got somebody in there to spread it out through there. So hope that helps with that side of things, guys. If you've got any more questions about that, just hit me up either in the YouTube chat or send me a DM or on X, and yeah, I can talk through a little bit more of that around your teams. And the last thing I did mention at the start, 99K rookies, guys, don't put them in unless it's somebody like a Jepson who looks like he potentially can get games, or a Boyd, because you've just got nowhere to go. And that's where, outside of probably Gorn, that's why I was talking about this earlier, why I had Whitfield in, or a Sinclair, easy to go down. Peatling is in there because I'm looking at him all going down, much easier to go down than me having Draper in there for now, and then he doesn't work out. Now I've got to try to go up. So I try to put the more expensive guys in, a little bit more guns and rookies in that sort of bit, but with still the odd mid-pricer floated through because it's much easier to trade down than it is up. So if you are 50-50 on a two players, and one's a little bit more expensive, put the more expensive one in, because then it's much easier. If that one doesn't look like playing the role that you want, you can just go down. All right, guys, we'll be back for another Supercoach Insider episode soon. Thanks. Bye.